Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, sponsored by Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, now accepting residents. They also offer day stay and respite programs. Call 360-689-4314 to schedule a tour of Fieldstone's beautifully appointed apartments on Rolling Bay today. And now, Reed, maybe you can read the
I would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish people, specifically our neighbors, the Suquamish tribe. We are grateful for their hospitality and we honor them. And we are learning from them continually every day. We appreciate their patience and understanding as we learn to understand the heritage that precedes us since time immemorial.
Mama Akuyea, habari gani?
Habari gani, baby. Thank you.
So I want to warmly welcome Akuyea Karen Vargas and Marva Jones, who are so generously offering their time and experiences to help us understand more about Kwanzaa. So I would love to hear from either one of you. I'm curious about where Kwanzaa began and how it started, and
Yes.
all the roots and the cultural.
The roots go back for thousands of years from the African diaspora and from Africa, but it wasn't being taught here in the Americas. It wasn't until 1966 when Dr. Mwana Kareunga, he began to develop those principles, those African principles that was part of our culture, our heritage, and part of our villaging and part of our sharing of our families and being able to celebrate our traditions and our culture, that it came here to the United States. And when Dr. Karinga, he began to do this work back in 1966 so that he could connect us back to the roots of those things that was severed from us during the enslavement. And so it became a movement here in the United States, but these traditions go back for thousands of years from the African diaspora. And so we here have been immersed into the principles of Kwanzaa since his teachings back in 1966. So those were the roots of it here. But of course, these principles have been going on for thousands of years with the African continent. These are principles across that entire continent.
So is Kwanzaa practiced differently in the United States? In other countries?
I think whenever you transition to any geographic area, there are ways that all of us can celebrate. It's just like Christmas, How do you celebrate Christmas? How do you celebrate Kwanzaa? How do you celebrate, the New Year's? How do you bring in these principles? But the foundational principle is all about love, family, care. How do we celebrate together? How we honor one another, and we really want to empower our families to be in a place of health and well-being. And those are the principles of Kwanzaa, and we celebrate them. They are a family-based celebration. Yes, it expands to the community, but this is how we celebrate and how they explore these principles within the family.
So we heard Chastity's son say habari gani.
Yes.
Do you want to say a little something about that?
I'd like him to share with us, because this is about our community villaging, and we'd love for him to share with us.
Chas?
They just ran out again to go get muddy in the snow, but I'm trying to get them back in. But this is the first year, although they did the candles, this is the first year that they went in deeply with Kwanzaa. And so my guys are a little bit little, so the candle thing is fire. So we do LEDs version of this. And you notice the pictures. I love that you put Marva's up there, but what Akuyea is on point as our historian that every family might celebrate different depending on who walked you through some of your family rituals. So my grandma walked us through some rituals, and we'll put all of our ancestors' pictures on our area around our candles. We've lost so many, unfortunately, that it's the one way we bring together maybe all of our family stories. And so we don't have tons of family left. We have only our stories. And so we gather our stories and we share more of them. And then we put the stories around the Kwanzaa candles. The boys said today it's similar to Hanukkah because you're celebrating something every day, but they also expect a gift every day. And I thought a gift is my cooking, but today I was informed that it should be a wrapped gift. Grandma didn't cover that. No, nobody covered that. You need an expensive gift. So I don't know what history they're choosing to go from, but it's somebody else's Kwanzaa, not this house. This house is on budget Kwanzaa. So.
Oh, Tess, in my family, we do experiences. Like today, your gift is you go to Granny's and make cookies, right? Today, we go out and make snowmen. So you could, yeah, budget. I think budget holidays are the best anyway, because they involve experiences and connections with people, right? That sounds like it really would fit the Kwanzaa tradition. What would you say, Akuyea?
You know, I'm so glad that we're talking about Kwanzaa and we're talking about how we celebrate, you know, but Kwanzaa is always family-centered. Family-centered, and it's a sharing from the ancestors, our history, our culture, our, you know, our arts and our food and our music. And so, you know, when we talk about, you see the candles that Marva have there, and the family, it's always family-centered. And then they pour libations, and they speak about the ancestors and honoring the ancestors and honoring those whose shoulders they stand on and lifting up all of the contributions. So it's empowering our families and empowering our village, our community, because it's a villaging practice to be able to come together and to make sure that those traditions and those stories and those, you know, all of those things are not being lost, and it's being passed on to the next generation, because Sankofa is so important. Sankofa is so important. And we want our young people and our families to know where we come from. And those cultures and those traditions that have been severed during the displacement and during the removals and during all of those, during those periods. And you don't have to be enslaved to be severed from your cultural practices and traditions of those and within your families and the communities from which you come from. And so, you know, as we talk about the preserving, the celebrating, the honoring, and how we continue to make that a traditional and cultural practice is very important, because from this generation to that generation, all of those teachings can be lost.
Right. And unless the kids learn the stories,
that's right,
they can't carry them forward. So do you often have a story associated to each picture or each person, or how does that work?
Well, we usually pour libations and speak to them about their you know, where they come from and how they have changed our lives, and those things we celebrate and we hold up and we honor one another. You know, we honor great grandma who sacrificed so much for us and was able to help us through tough times and be able to share all of those love stories, because they are love stories, you know. I remember back in the day, you remember that show, The Love Story? I think it was with Robert Redford and someone. It was called Love Story, Barbara Streisand, somebody back in the day, Barbara Streisand, you know, all those things. And it's about sharing those stories and telling those young people about who they are, where they come from. It's very important that, you know, Kwanzaa is very important to preserving those customs and those traditions and those celebrations and why we do them,
Rita's saying it kind of reminds him of a little bit of some of the ofrenda traditions
Mhm,
in the Mexican tradition of
That's right.
the candles and the flowers and the pictures and the homages to our lost people. It's just another way to carry those stories forward. But this feels like it has a piece of teaching younger people to become story carriers.
Oh, more than that, to instill the principles. Because the principles, and we'll talk about the principles as we go through here today, the principles help strengthen the community, strengthen our families, strengthen the village. And so they're just not, each day has a meaning and a principle that's being taught and given.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Marva.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Marva?
I know my volume seems like it's very low and I'm not sure what I need to do to get it back up.
Well, no, you
But-
can go ahead and speak if
Can
you
you
can
turn
hear
me
us
up?
even a little.
The host,
You sound great, Marva.
I beg your pardon?
You sound great.
Oh, I can hear you guys as well. So, okay. So let me know when you're done, Karen speaking. I'd like to share.
No, go ahead and share, Marva.
Oh, I just want to say that as you can see, I have the symbols of Kwanzaa. My family has been celebrating for over 20 years, and we often do it in our homes, or we might get with extended family, like my sister and her 7 kids, and we all talked about the symbols and the reason why it's so vital that we share with them during this time. And we also, I've celebrated in the community for like 7 days. I think we've done it 2 or 3 years. And there was a young man an older gentleman came to Kipsett County 20 years ago and started talking about Kwanzaa and the importance of Kwanzaa. And for myself, knowing that I live in Kingston, which is far away from Bremerton area where a lot of African Americans are living, I decided to create Kwanzaa for my family because I felt like they were the only kids in their school that was African American. And I recognized the philosophy of Dr. Mohammed, who created it. I said, I need that in my family so my kids can feel a sense of belonging. And so, yes, we celebrated in our home, and I've celebrated with my grandchildren the last few years. And of course, Karen set us up to celebrate it online with a couple of times during COVID. But what I would like to leave with you is that, yes, we talk about our history, but again, we talk about how we can change and be better people in the community, in our church, in our homes. So every night when we sat down, each child lit a candle. The kids are always a very big part of Kwanzaa. But our goal was to let our kids know that you are worthy, that you can make changes in your community, you have a voice, and in this house, you have a voice. And so I found it to be very effective for a lot of families in the community. So my mission was to create Kwanzaa kits for other families that want to celebrate it. A lot of time it's difficult to make the candle holder. Is really difficult, but my husband reached out to the schools in our community and they were able to create Kwanzaa candle holder. Let me show you.
And
So
that
and then my husband went to the school and we got the kids that's in wood class to help out. And so we were able to create different candle holders and the kits. And we sold them for about $50, $55 to families. And then I wrote a book about how to celebrate Kwanzaa in your community, in your home. And so I was able to put the book inside their kit. And that way they can further the discussion with their kids and be able to celebrate it with using the symbols in their home. And the one thing I wanted to say is that we talked about my grandmother. My grandmother had this in her home, and before she passed away. This is like an old doily. And I have some of her coffee pot, my mother's coffee pot, which is probably about 75 years old. And so I share that with my grandchildren. We often use it to bring my mother back, to reflect and remember my mom. And so also, there's symbolic of the corn, which represent the kids. I have the other 3 in my box, but normally we would have the 4 pieces of corn to represent my 4 kids. So it's just a great way to bring the family together every day for about an hour after Christmas. And he listened to the children's stories, and they had to make their gifts for one another. And it was amazing how my kids really got into it, making socks and putting positive affirmation on it. One of my daughters made that for her 3 siblings. Another one made coupons, said, I'll do your dishes for the week. They came up with these great ideas. And then on the last day, of course, we played games, and we cooked our personal soul food, and we ate, and we just enjoy one another. And my kids today still can reflect and remember those days that we celebrated, because we made it a conscious effort to sit down with them at least an hour or more per day, my husband and I, and talk to them. So that's what I want to share about my experience. Yes, we talked about Africa. Yes, we talked about the shoulders that the people that came before us, our ancestors, and we would read a book. We would read about Oprah Winfrey. We would read about that night. We would read something that to remind them that you can make it too. Just because you're dark skin color, you are okay. And these people made it. And if they made it, you can make it too. So that's what we did. And we made gifts. This is a gift that my nephew made for me. It's a picture frame. And so we could put our picture in it. And he created this. Just a lot of fun. And I hope now that we've somewhat not in COVID, is that we can get back to this celebration. And my goal is next year is to begin planning at a community place where people can come and share their stories and their ideas for Kwanzaa, and how they can change the community and make changes to their houses and use the different symbols as a way of being, connecting these words that we say to some of the symbols, and using the Swahili words, which is an African language that they use most often, and to use those words, and so kids can remember the importance of Kwanzaa.
Marva, I have 2 questions for you from the Robin. One is the book you made about Kwanzaa, is that available to other people, and where could we get it? And
yes, it is. I've made several copies. I'm probably down to about 5, but sure, anybody can. And it has recipes in it, why we celebrate Kwanzaa. We talked about the different symbols are already in the book, so people can remember them. And then we talked about how to implement it in your home, your church, your community, your school. And then it just shows some of the symbols. But what I love about it, we have recipes in here. We have the Swahili words for each symbol. And then there's more words that you can use. And the clothing talks about why we wear the clothing. And then these are simple songs that I created that you can sing at Kwanzaa time.
oh, that's awesome.
And these are some of the activities that you can make. And then we have the menu, what we eat for Kwanzaa, and the why. That's sweet potato pie, which I'm about to make in a couple of days. We eat collard greens. We're known for our fried chicken. Then I also added my kids, we eat black eyed peas. Great recipe my husband came up with. And then my daughter had written a poem about culture. And so I added that. And then my youngest daughter at the time she's still a very good artist, and she drew the picture. So we included their work into the book. And then I added a did you know? Like, did you know what African-American people invented and the why? And then that's it. The end. So yes, I have a few copies left, and I can still reproduce copies because this was created by me. So if anybody interested of a kit, I still have some of the Kwanzaa, a few of these left, the Kwanzaa holder. And everything else is simple. You can go buy the candles at the store. You can add things from your grandmother or things that you want your kids to know about, or your grandkids to know about the history of your family. And then the other thing, we just do some reflection. My husband and I went to Cancun. We talked about what that experience is like. They can also travel. And then I just went to Bethlehem with Karen. So this year with my grandkids, we're going to do a video slide and share with them about our 14-day cruise, which was all over the Kwanzaa, not Kwanzaa, but I'm sorry, about Bethlehem and what it is like to see baby Jesus where he was born. And so we'll just go a little bit deeper since I took that trip this year. And then while we have the corn on the table and what the baskets mean, and then the foundation is the kente cloth. So we'll do that this year. In fact, I'm about to leave this up because I'm about to set my house up for Christmas. And I usually have this set up on my table. And but I think I might put a tree up this year. So
Marva,
yes,
this
you
is
can't get the
amazing. This is incredible. And you have made not, I mean, I can see when you would give these kits to families, get these kits into the hands of families, it really is like having a grandmother there to walk you through the whole thing, right? That's so
yes.
beautiful.
Now I'm the grandmother.
Right. You're right. But you're like the community grandmother who's gifting this spirit and the teachings to everybody. That's so beautiful. And it sounds like there's people who would love to have a copy of your book.
Yeah,
So
we're inviting I'm inviting my sister-in-law and my two great nieces from my husband's side over, and we'll start Kwanzaa the next day. They're going to spend the night with us because I don't think two of them experienced it, but my niece, one of them have experienced Kwanzaa. So I just want to bring Kwanzaa back and make it more alive out there in the community. I feel like, because of the COVID experience we all went through, it's kind of been buried a little bit, but my goal is hopefully to bring it back alive in the community, and so people can experience this wonderful, wonderful concept during this time of the year.
I wanted to ask, Robin had some questions about the candles specifically. What do the different colors mean, and do they have each a principle, or how does that work?
Oh, sure. The red represents the blood that our ancestors shared, and the green represent the land, because what they've done, they had to work the land. They were the main people that had the crops going, and that's the way people was able to eat. And then the black one just represents the people, the African-American people. Now, what I like to say is anybody can celebrate Kwanzaa. It's not an isolated holiday or program that only Black people can celebrate. That's not what Dr. Malani made it for. Everybody can celebrate it. He's just saying, I recognize that the Black community is not coming together at the dinner table, and we need to set some time aside where they can come and reflect on who they are as people.
So that sounds like the kind of thing any family could be enriched by.
Oh, any family. I want to make that real clear. Yes, any family.
Well, Marva, I think you're going to have to reprint your book.
Yes. Yes. And the kids like the candle. And what I love about it, it provides an opportunity to let the children know that the oldest is usually the one in charge. So it has that order. So in my family, my oldest son lit the candle, then the next oldest, and then the next, and then to my baby. And so we wanted to make sure they understood that, because we were asking my son, if we were gone to the store or something, my husband and I, that Rika was in charge. And it teaches order and respect, because a lot of time today, kids don't respect their older siblings. And so that was one of the things that we would tell Rika, you are an example to your three siblings. And so you have to be a witness and an example for them when we're gone. So you can't be arguing with them. You have to give them good, positive guidance and reinforcement. And I can say now that my children are grown, they have that in them. And I can say that my two daughters my son as well, work strongly in the community. And I was just telling my husband, I said, we modeled that. We talked about that. We discussed that. And we need young people to work in the community. That's how our communities thrive. And so all three of them work with my oldest son, work with basketball, working with young people. My daughter, Sharita, which is the youngest, work at, where she worked here down in Bremerton. United Way. And Tiffany works at Catalyst Public School, but her job is the community outreach, making those connections. And I thought, you know what? They will also train in that. And I can say that they all three are blessed children because they did the work, and they reminded of the work when they were really little.
Yes.
And so naturally they're gonna work out there in the community. And unfortunately, my youngest one passed away. But he was also a big
Yes.
advocate of bringing kids in our house. Mom, they don't have a place to stay. Can they stay here?
Mhm.
And so I'm thankful. I always said, if they don't have all the money in the world, I just hope that they have a love for people and to do right by people and to
Yes.
help people, because that's why I believe one of the reasons why we was put on earth is to help one another and not to tear one another down or go behind their backs and hurt
Yeah.
them. They always advocate for the person that somebody's hurting. They always would stand up for that person. Mommy, I saw this person being mean to this child, and I stepped in and said, hey, let's talk about it.
Mhm.
So that's what they walked away with. They may not have the best jobs making $200,000 a year, but they're happy and fulfilled in what they're doing. And they make pretty good money.
Marva, we have several questions about how do we get those books? How do we get them into libraries? And how do we get them into
How you get the book? I'm gonna let you meet my husband real quick. He's about to, okay, he coming back. Because he was also part of this celebration with me for many years. But just let me know that you're interested and I can get the book.
Okay,
That's not a
great.
problem. I still have about 5 copies
And
and I
Marva,
have all the things to make the book with. I just need to just do it.
and Marva, I don't know if Sharita's on the phone, but we're having a community celebration of Kwanzaa at United Way.
Yes, so she reached out to me, she and another member of the community, and asked me would I help with this on the
Yes.
31st of
Yes.
January. And so I tried to call her to get on today, but she's at work. I forgot she's working. And so, but I will get with her and get all the details. And hopefully even if it's not a large group, we can bring people back in. And maybe then I'll have my books so people can
Yes.
purchase. I'm only selling it for like $10. Just so people can reach out to their family members and say, let's have dinner together. Let's talk about these 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which is I think most of you know what the 7 principles are, but
Well, let's go
Umoja,
over them. Well,
Chagalia.
Let's do that.
Let's do that, Marva. And you can take whichever portion that you wanna, but I think it's important that when we begin to teach about Kwanzaa, that we begin to give them the information and educate them what Umoja means and why Umoja is important and why Kuka Chagalia is important for our, for ourselves and for our well-being. And I think
Right.
that, I'll share, and Marva, if you want to begin to jump in here, but Umoja means unity. How do we unify? How do we come
Yes.
together? How do we village? How do we come together in a collective way to do and unify and strengthen one another? That is what the basis of Umoja is, how to strengthen a community, how to come together on one accord and be able to address some of the issues. So how important is that unity in Umoja, because it strives to maintain unity in the family, in the community, the nation, the race, and the world. That's why it's important when we talk about Umoja. Only by having strong families and creating a community will we be able to maintain unity. And that's in any community. That is,
yes, I think it's a need, Miss Karen.
it's a need.
I think it's vital.
It's very vital. So when we begin to talk about the importance of these principles, these are principles for humanity, not just for the African community,
Of course.
for humanity, for us, how to be together with one another, having and strengthening relationships and building that type of strength across our community. And I think that it's important that they understand a lot of times when we begin to do collective work, the importance of laying a strong foundation of why we do these unifying things, whether it's Martin Luther King celebration, whether it's Black History Month, whether it's our Native American Indigenous Peoples Day. It is based in how we strengthen and unify one another as human beings. And so it's important to understand what these principles, these are principles for life. These are principles to strengthen each and every one of us. And so
Yes.
with that, I'll give you, if you want to explain what Kuja Chagalia is.
Well, how about we could take a word, because it's really, you do one word per day because it takes a long time. But I thought maybe we could all take one word and share our thoughts on how we can implement this in our home, or whether in the community or in their church or wherever, their job, whatever that. So maybe we could take one word and just go around and share that. That way everybody have voice. So I'm not sure what word we want. We talk a lot about unity. Maybe we can do. Does anybody have an idea what word they would like to elaborate on?
Boy, they're all so
cool.
rich.
Which one?
They're all so rich. It's hard to
They
say.
are. I really like Kugi Chagalia, because that means self-determination. And that's the one word that always sticks out to me, because that word means that you have to be determined to make change.
Yeah.
So, and I like them all. Kuamba, creativity is another one of my favorite, because I believe that God has given me a gift of creativity. So that one comes really well. But I also like Ujima, where economics, teaching young people how to save, how to work, how to have resources to be able to get a job, and what they do with their money. So that's another one, but they are wonderful. So somebody pick a word.
Well, I love that Kumba, because creativity, you're right. It's not just for making beautiful things, but it's for problem solving. It's for figuring out how to get around our issues together in a I think like a win-win way that profits everybody.
Okay.
To leave the community more beautiful.
Can you guys see my husband?
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon,
Hello.
everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome.
You all safe,
Hello,
warm,
Mr.
and
Jones.
nestled in, preparing for lots of family, friends, and fellowship with this holiday season. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
All right, he is very interested in Kwanzaa. So you say you want to do Kuumba?
Well, I just love that concept. I mean,
Yes.
it's so rich and broad.
And it's not just about being creative, but it's focused on the arts, the dance, the storytelling, also a way we can build blocks in our community, in a way that we can show creativity. So who would like to start?
Well, I'm thinking about Nia.
Oh,
And-
Nia? Okay,
yeah.
purpose.
And then that on the screen where that's being shared, where it says to build and develop community for the benefit of people. It's
Okay.
like that really, I guess that's really resonates. It's like it's
Okay.
not community for community's sake, right? It's for the benefit of all people.
Okay. So maybe it sounds like maybe everybody could take a word, whatever word they want to expound on, and share. And so we wouldn't do it like this normally in a setting of Kwanzaa, because we would do it 7 days and take a word, but you could do it any way you want to do it, because it's all about being creative. Kuumba. So has anybody got a word they like to share and expound upon, and how you're going to make or think about making changes in the community or in your home, or wherever you think it's necessary to, where you work at, what's important to you. So maybe we could take about a minute and a half to share on this thought. So anybody can go first. I'm not going first. I want to hear you guys.
Robin?
I will take number 3, Ujima. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yes, that's correct. Ujima.
Collective work and responsibility to build and maintain a community. As some of you may know, for the last couple of years, I've been serving as the Suquamish Tribal Council's emissary to the city of Paulsbo to, quote, find a way forward when there was a split following the shooting of Stone Child Chief Stick several years ago.
Yes.
And we have now come back together, but basically this was very sacred mission embraced by people who from two different sovereigns who were hurt, angry, a chasm apart in terms of understanding each other and perceptions. And because both sides were people of good heart and good intention, willing to listen to the other people with an open heart and give people second chance and reconsider their perceptions of and maybe some misperceptions. We come back together. We still got some more healing to do, but it's been probably one of the most meaningful, transformative experiences of my entire life, taking everything I've ever done or learned to bear, and maybe developing a few more as I went along. And one of the other things that I learned from this is some people were impatient with me or angry at me that I wasn't calling the police chief on the carpet or the city council or something for not doing things.
Yes.
My sense was that from both sides that the leaders, it was going to be more important and not to badger them and belittle and get them defensive, but to keep enlightening and providing perspectives so they would reach these conclusions in their own hearts and embrace them fully and internally, which they did. And by the time we got to the end, they're fully celebrating all the journey we have come through and the final, not result, or at least this next step. And it was so much more powerful than Karen been a leader of this type of healing and reconciliation for years and years. She speaks her mind. She doesn't pound people, but leads by example and gets people to change their hearts. That's the best from my experience. And I'm going to continue to do this in lots of different realms, but following Karen's or Akuye's lead, just to get people to change their hearts voluntarily. Yes. And they spread that goodwill then further, like disciples. So thank you, Akuyea.
Robin, you know what? I'm so glad that you've been doing that work, because that work has to happen in all of our communities, because it's not if things will begin to fall apart, but when they do. How do we move them into a place of health and well-being and being able to come together in a peaceful way to address some hard and difficult issues, atrocities and different things that have happened? This is important work when we talk about moving forward to do the work of truth and reconciliation and healing those hearts and minds around those things when we can't even speak peacefully with one another. We can't come together. No one wants to talk, and it's difficult to resolve or come to a place of understanding if we don't even want to come to the table. We stay in that place of embitterment and that place of anger and that place of unforgiving. And we want to be able to address those things and bring us to that place of healing of the hearts and minds, to be able to move forward in a way that's going to strengthen our community and that's going to heal our community. And so the challenge has always been, how do you move people from a place of anger and embitterment and unforgiveness to at least be able to hear those voices that are in the room, to be able to come together where a place where we can begin to deal with those wounds, the deep-seated wounds that need to be healed. They have to be healed, because if we don't move that way, we will continue to move in a place that can hurt others. And we don't want to do that either. Thank you for that, Robin.
And thank you for that, Karen. That is, yeah, the whole culture needs to shift. And so each of us doing our part with our families and our communities really does make a difference. It doesn't feel like it necessarily all the time, but I think that's really important. And Robin, not everybody gets to do as big of a job as that one, but I think the thing to think about is, where can I do that today in a small way, or where can I do something healing in my family or my community, especially as the holidays are coming on. Sometimes those can be difficult times.
And I do continue to do this in very small, minute ways. Again, taking Akuye's lead from being at the pool, and she is always an ambassador for goodwill, just by smiling at somebody, introducing herself. I mean, she made a lot of times, I've pointed out to her, she didn't even realize what a big impact she's had on somebody. But I try to mimic that and keep building extra pieces of community and peace by modeling Karen's warm outreach, accepting behavior. And it really, really makes a cumulative difference.
One thing that
Yes.
has always impressed me so much about the way Akuyea comes into any group or any room is that she almost always comes in and says, "Hey, family, great
Yes.
to see you." And
Yeah.
that, right? And right? That
She
piece is so beautiful.
She
And it's like,
walks in community, like she has that barbershop, Afro sheen, cocoa butter, love smell. Like I can't explain it, but some of you understand what I'm talking about. Like you walk into a room and you can smell her and it's just like love. So it's one of those things. And also, Robin, you can get her into the pool anytime. We need more Black people up in that pool. Akuyea, you need to be up there every day. I'm just saying.
I try.
Amen.
I chose.
She tries. Robin tries. She called
I
me.
have
and said, "Come on, I just got to get myself back into the groove of taking care of some self-care in the pool." And, there's no excuse, because that's a part of our health and well-being too. It really is, to be able to move your body and be able to get in that water and allow that water to heal you in a way.
I
Water
would stay in
is
the
so
pool
healing.
longer if you were talking in there. I would like.
Well, we did used to have hot tub topics. I'll let Robin say, we were in the hot
We were
tub.
known as the Hot Tub Justice League, because we would be solving all these problems and discussing them. We didn't know other people regarded that, and they wanted to join our Hot Tub Justice League. We said, we'd like to join too. What is that?
Half naked social justice. I think a lot of people would
Hot
join.
Tub Justice League.
that-
It was
would join that.
wonderful. It was wonderful just to talk to everyone while they were sitting in that hot tub, relaxing, just letting things go, and those are little ways that we can make the difference in our communities.
maybe we need to start having international peace conferences in hot tubs,
Yeah,
with like tea and cookies on the side,
that's right. That's
Always
right.
cookies.
right?
I chose Imani because I think, for those of you that I mentioned before, because we've lost a lot of family members in my family, and because some of the young people who are now starting to decolonize their faith. And so when in the 1960s, when Dr. Kruger had created Kwanzaa, this was after like the Watts riots. The interesting thing is it's not faith-based, as Teacher Marva said. So anybody has entry point in this. You don't have to be of faith, even though many people hold faith. So Imani, which is an Arabic word, that means that sort of faith is knowing your best practices and traditions to keep them for like a higher level of spirituality. And these young people, the rate that they're decolonizing their faith to really bring it back to what the intention of what our ancestors might have held before we were handed some of the wider principles of faith. And that is of harvest, family, food, tradition, dance, worship. Those are natural parts of African excellence. Like before we were handed a white Jesus Bible, we were already doing dance church. We were already doing worship. And so to understand that we come from this history that has been robbed from us. And so historians like Akuyea that bring us back to understanding those principles, we infuse the history. I'm learning history like I just learned about Pat Wright like last year, all from, I didn't know all of the history of the area as I'm learning from, and I'm finally learning how also to ask the questions. So in
Yes.
this Amani, no one taught me how to ask the questions about, I was afraid to ask because apparently we were born Baptist and, Pentecostal, and I don't know, we were covered by a lot of Holy Spirits, but I'm learning that there were women that were all different faiths, like all different faiths in our family. And that brings a level of spirituality and understanding that we're all very diverse, even in our Black families.
Yeah.
And so this gives us entry to hold something intentionally in history for us. So some African-American families do not understand or celebrate Kwanzaa, but this gives us an intentional place to reach back into history. Because I don't think this is a spiritual one as much as a historical and cultural.
Good thoughts. Good thoughts.
I love that we're kind of making the rounds of each of these principles. Is there somebody want to talk about one of the ones we haven't touched on yet?
Can I just comment on what Chastity was talking about?
Of course.
I'm so glad that she talked about Imani, because Imani is faith. Faith is those things that you're hoping for, and the evidence of things not seen. So to believe with all your heart in your people, your parents, your teachers, your leaders, whether, it's about being victorious over your struggles, to be able to have faith that you can make it, faith that you can do it, faith that things will work out. Those faith is something that is part of our spiritual being, not religious being, our spiritual health and well-being. Our faith is in that practice, and so many times we put it in a box under religion, and that's not what it is. And faith in human beings. I'm hoping that you would treat me right. I'm having faith that we can work through our struggles. I'm believing. It's the believing of things will be better, that we can do better. Those are faith. And when you say faith-based, sometimes it gets very confusing because people want to put it under religion, and it's not religion. It's a spiritual practice of health and well-being. And so I'm glad we talked about it. And it is that we walk by faith, and we put trust in the Holy Spirit and the power that is greater than we are. And so people, and they again put those things under, in our native indigenous families talk about, we trust the Creator. They're talking about they're having faith in something that they know, something, or that is higher than they are. Their higher power. They want to reach for their higher power, and believing that that higher power can help lead and guide us and shepherd us in a way that is bringing us to a place of health and wellness. And so, and there's so many different beliefs, but when we're talking about Imani, their faith, they're walking and trusting in a power that's greater than they are.
Can I add something, or as you're talking, what comes to me around that faith, or like you were saying, sometimes people confuse the word faith having that it has to be a religious word. And so that whatever deep trust isn't quite the same as faith, but I think about just faith and love, and faith in the like deep down in every human being, how the essence is that love, and that a love or the divine nature, and really trusting in humanity, even with all the shit that happens is going on. But just That's something that I think about when I think about, as you were talking and thinking about faith and that deep trust in each other, really, but in the depths of our souls, if you will. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Akuyea, did you want to add to that?
I think that was wonderful because I think when we have conversations like this and we're able to express and we hear all of the voices in the room, to be able to have these type of collective conversations is so vital, so that we can get a greater understanding from one another. How do we enter into doing or even begin to practice these type of principles and have a greater understanding that, I work with a lot of our young people, and we can spit out a lot of information and we can give them all kinds of curriculum, but I want our young people to come away with a in-depth understanding of what we're talking about, because, I can say all these things, but if they come away and they're saying, I don't get it, I don't understand what you're talking about, all of what we were talking about was for naught, because they're still left with all of these questionings and all of this misunderstanding or even miseducation, all these things. So it's good we can work through and we can talk it through till it feels good in our well-being, in our souls, about the stuff that we're talking about.
This is amazing to me that I can really see after this conversation why you would take an hour a day for the week to go through each of these principles as a family, or if you didn't have a bunch of family around, like with family and friends or neighbors or whatever faith group, right?
Yes.
But it feels like something that everybody should be doing, like, once a year or once a month. To really be these are deep principles, and they're not principles we talk about very much.
That's right.
Or we may talk, we all use the code words, but they don't always turn into a real conversation about what are we talking about. And I love the idea that I would sit with my grandkids and kids and have, real in-depth conversations. Debbie?
I really appreciate Marva and Akuyea for you speaking to how this is something for everybody to celebrate, because as a white-bodied person, I really am trying to be aware and continue to learn about cultural appropriation. And so honestly, I didn't know the answer to that question until today. So I really appreciate you speaking that straight out.
And I appreciate getting the answer I wanted, which is, I can also bring these amazing principles to my family and feel like that's appropriate.
When we can create space to have these type of wonderful conversations, that we can bring bring us into a space where we can lay aside every weight or fear, to be able to celebrate, honor, and learn. This is a wonderful learning community that we have here today around the principles of Kwanzaa and what that means for all of us, across barriers, across cultures, across misunderstandings, that we can come to a place where we feel, I feel that there's liberty here and freedom here for us to ask questions and not feel stupid or feel intimidated or feel like, oh, I just can't ask those type of questions. And so when we can cultivate that type of learning community to come together and lay aside those fears or those distractions, I think we're cultivating growth here today, and understanding and some healing.
And Karen, I also said that because mostly everybody have grandchildren.
Yes.
Mostly, we all live in a community. We all have principles and values of our own. This gentleman happened to just do some in-depth research that he recognized that the Black community of children are not getting to know who their ancestors were. How can they develop and grow and be a great person if they don't even know where they came from? So that was his concept. Not saying that other people, other cultures didn't do that as well. But what he just said was, I know one group of people, it's not a Black thing. That's what I want to say. And I speak freely on that because now we have to talk. And sometimes I know people don't, like you say, you don't know how to ask the question. But our goal is, if you don't know, we should be able to say, hey, here's a celebration you can do with your children, your grandchildren, so they can have meaning of these principles and values. Because we're dealing with a different group of children, not knowing that we were going to be dealing with a millennium group that has a lot of sassiness and love to be on their computers or their phones and not having critical conversations like this. So this
Yes.
is a way that you can say, come here, this is a holiday, this is a celebration, this is a opportunity that we can come together because you guys are out of school right now and we got the time to do this. We're so busy throughout the week that we don't sit down with our kids enough to say, I want to talk to you about this and the why. So now it's just so open that you can freely have those conversations and share with other families that how often do you sit at the dinner table with your children or breakfast table? Well, we don't really sit there. They go off into their own rooms and watch television, and I'm guilty of that as well. But what I love about Kwanzaa is my grandkids, we got time to sit down and talk. Hey Zion, how you? My grandson is Zion. He's 10, about to be 11. How you gonna practice community work and using Umoja? What can you do? How can you be sustained by cookie chocolate, having that self-determination in school when something get hard? What can you do? But he'll reflect. Say, man, I remember learning this from my grandmother and my mom. And so then they'll grow up in a community environment that have their own jobs, but also work in a community. And I see that it worked for my kids.
Yes.
And so I just encourage, we need more kids to work in the community,
That's right.
carrying the boxes or whatever, or start off doing some type of program, working program that make a little money, but doing community work because we're getting older. And so we got to pass this on to the next
Yes.
generation.
Yes. Thank you for that, Marva, because that's why we do the principles, so that our young people can have these type of tools to be able for life. And it's for life. It's not just, it's for life. It's for
Right.
their life to be able to have these type of principles that would help them, whether they're in school, whether they're in community, whether they're in society, whether they're in the government, in the school district. These principles level the playing field. That's what they are supposed to do, to give our young people and equip our young people with these type of tools to be able to walk through life in a healthy way and understand these principles can help them in life. These principles
And
can
to address the why, Karen, why do I need to work in the community?
Yeah.
Somebody needs you.
Yes.
Somebody needs your expertise.
Yes.
Someone needs your services. That's why we do what we do.
Yes.
And that's why he created this important principle, is reaching out to the community and helping those that have a greater need. There's always somebody that needs your work, that needs your hands, that needs your feet. And that's what I think the message since COVID has been neglected. Even with my own grandkids, I'm watching them like, do you see there's a need? You can open a door for this individual. Our kids did that, but I'm seeing that it's waxing away. And I think that this is a way to bring that conversation back respectfully and healthfully, and not to just fuss at the kids or you need to do this. Let's talk about these principles. I think they will receive it much better.
Yes, Marva. Thank you.
Especially, yeah, if you're saying these are principles you share.
Yeah, or you practice. And like my guys are little. I don't have grandkids. Thank goodness. Don't be speaking on people. I got
All right,
babies.
you got time, girl.
Woo! Geez, I can't even think of that. My guys are little and they have little
Right.
hands and they run into walls and they're not the cleanest and they're not yet for doing work. They can do a little helpline, my oldest, but
Right.
together, all three of them are a little service team. So they've been cleaning up poop and doing some yard stuff for families. And just now their little hands are coming together to be a big team. And how they feel, that word self-determination, how they feel when they complete that
Mhm.
work project, you don't even have to
Yes,
talk about
yes.
what it does for them. When they walk
Yes.
away and somebody else, not mom and dad, says, thank you for your service.
That's that umoja. You teaching them that umoja, how to do that collective, unified work coming together, even in their own brothers and family, to be able to do something in a unifying collective way and strengthening them as a whole.
I don't think it's only for kids. I
No,
think there's
it's
plenty of adults who could spend a little
Of
happy
course.
hour having some of these conversations too.
Happy hour.
Yes.
Well,
It's
my
for all
goodness,
of us.
this has been an incredible hour. Speaking of happy hours, thank you so much, Akuyea and Marva, especially, and Chas, and everyone who showed up and joined in the conversation. I'm really looking forward to getting a hold of one of those books and getting
Okay.
one into the library, as
Yes.
Robin suggested, right? Maybe several libraries, like all the libraries in Kitsap should have a copy, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
All of our schools should
All
have
of the
a copy.
schools. Yeah, this is really great work. And Marva, I can't thank you enough for really wonderful guidance in this, that I can't wait to get the book. And when I do, I'll hear your voice on every page.